Hello, upper cervical doctors and students. Welcome back to the UCM podcast. This is your host, Dr. Bill Davis, founder and CEO of UCM Practice Growth Systems. Very excited to be with you once again and to talk to you about a great topic that is so important in an upper cervical practice, especially if you want to scale in any capacity. And that is how to create a culture of accountability in your upper cervical practice. So we're going to get right into this because this is a topic that can make a tremendous impact on your team, regardless of the size of the team as well. If it's just you and one CA, if you have a high accountability practice, the ability of the two of you to produce more efficient and effective results will dramatically increase. And the more team members you have, the more important it becomes to have a high accountability practice. And so what does this mean? It means to build a team that owns results without constant supervision. So we're going to get into this. It's going to be a practical guide for you, upper cervical chiropractors, who are really ready to stop being a bottleneck in your own practice. So here's the problem with accountability. If your practice only runs smoothly when you're watching, you don't have a team, you have dependence. As Jim Collins would say, you're a genius with 1,000 helpers, and that's not what you want to be. You want to be a type of team where everyone owns their individual roles and owns the results associated with them. And so some questions to ask to help you identify if there is an accountability practice or accountability problem within your practice is, number one, does everything depend on you? And this is, even more common the smaller a practice is. If it's just you in the practice and you have no CAs, then the answer is yes, of course. But at every step, every time you hire someone, if you don't have the right things in place, you can still have the majority of everything depending on you. Are tasks forgotten without reminders, right? Do you find yourself following up on the same responsibilities week after week? Hey, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do that? And another question to ask to see if you have that accountability problem is, do excuses replace solutions, right? Are the people that are working for you, are they the type of person who, when something goes wrong, is their response, well, here's why it happened, instead of here's what I'm doing about it, right? So is it an excuse, or is it, I have a solution to help this not happen again? Does your team wait to be told, right? Do they do what needs to be done, or do they wait around for you to tell them what needs to be done? And you want to have a team that has a high level of initiative. When people only act when they're directed, they are not proactive in their responsibilities, and maybe they don't have ownership of their particular role. So the key insight here is a lack of accountability is almost always a systems problem, not usually a people problem. The right systems will change behavior. It's all about having the right systems in place to promote accountability. It's not about micromanaging. And so what accountability really means is it's not about blame, fear, or punishment. True accountability is ownership. Each team member fully invested in their role and its outcomes. Accountability is knowing exactly what success looks like in your role. It's owning the outcomes, not just tasks. It's measuring results consistently. It's proactively solving problems before they escalate, and it's communicating early when something is off track. What accountability is not is blame after the fact, or fear of consequences, or punishment for mistakes, or micromanagement disguised as oversight, or a personality trait that some people just have. So why most practices struggle with accountability is for 5 main things. Number 1 is unclear expectations. And this is probably the one that we see the most. If team members don't know exactly what is expected, they can't be held responsible for it. And they're not going to hold themselves responsible to it either. And so crystal clear expectations on the front end with every team member will dramatically improve accountability. Number 2, though, is no measurable goals. If it's a lot of vague targets like, hey, just do your best, or, just, serve people well, or something like that, there's no objective standards, it's going to be extremely difficult to measure performance and to really be able to see if that team member is hitting the targets. Like they should have a specific result and that they're trying to accomplish in their role. The third way that practices can struggle with accountabilities is leaders who rescue employees, right? When the doctor just steps in to fix problems and removes the learning opportunity, it signals that ownership isn't really required for them, right? Because you can always, I don't have to do a great job at this, because if I don't remember how to do it or whatever, I can just ask the doctor and he'll do it for me. The fourth way that practices can struggle with accountability is having the wrong people in the wrong seats. Sometimes you just have a person in a role that is not great for them. If you're misaligned in their role, it can create frustration on both sides, for them and for you. And it can make accountability feel like a constant uphill battle. And the fifth reason why practices struggle with accountability is just being conflict averse, right? Just avoiding conflict. Unaddressed tension will just grow. A conversation avoided today becomes a crisis tomorrow. And so the sooner you address things as a leader of your practice, the better. Remember, clarity always comes before accountability. You cannot hold someone to a standard they were never given. So where does accountability start? It has to start with leadership. It has to start with you as the leader of your practice, setting the tone and the example for the rest of the team. So do you keep your commitments? Is your yes, yes, and your no, no? When you say you'll do something, do you follow through? Your team is watching and they'll match your standard, not your words. You have to set the tone. And how about your ability to address problems quickly? Do you delay conversations and allow problems to compound? Or are you prompt and direct and you give good feedback that show that the standards actually matter? And do you model ownership within your role within the team? When you make a mistake, do you own it, or do you deflect it and blame others? Leaders who model accountability give their teams permission to do the same. And then, as we said already, do you avoid difficult conversations? Avoidance is the single greatest accountability killer in a practice. Did you hear that? Avoidance is the single greatest accountability killer in a practice. This is both with team members and also with patients. When you avoid difficult conversations, it doesn't get better, it gets worse. Discomfort tolerated becomes a standard accepted. So the standard that you walk past, Doc, becomes the standard you accept, right? So when you see a team member doing something, saying something, taking a phone call, interacting with a patient, whatever, that is not the way that you want it to be, and you don't do anything about it, then you're basically telling them that what they're doing is okay. So, how do you start to develop a culture of accountability in your upper cervical practice? The best way to do it that I've found is to develop what's called a job scorecard for each role within your team. Now, if you only have one CA, this is pretty simple to develop a job scorecard. It's just going to be for one person. If you got 10 team members, it's going to obviously take you more time. But the key is you want to define success for every position. People cannot own what isn't clearly defined. And so every role in the practice, from the person who answers the phone at the front desk to an associate doctor who's the highest paid team member within the team, needs a complete success blueprint before accountability is possible. That's what a job scorecard does. So what is included in a good job scorecard? Number one is having a mission or a purpose. Why does this role exist? What's the highest contribution to the practice and to the patient outcomes that this position contributes, right? That's what you want to be thinking about when you think about what's the purpose of this position. Write it out, right? It should be a short statement, maybe a sentence or two, like the purpose of this role is blank. You also want to have a success defined statement where you can write a clear written description of what winning looks like in this role, so team members can self-evaluate with confidence, right? Those two are the top of the job scorecard. Now, if you want an example of a job scorecard, you can go over to our website at ucmgrow.com and click on resources and practice growth tools. And we have an example job scorecard there that you can download and utilize to build your own. And within that, you'll see these different categories. So the mission, purpose, the success defined. And then the next thing you want on that job scorecard is key results areas, or KRAs. These are the core responsibilities that define the role. These are the areas where performance will be measured and owned, right? And so having clear KRAs, or key results areas, is absolutely crucial for every role within the team. Because if you don't know what the results are if you're a team member and you don't know what the results are that are expected of you, then how could you possibly achieve them, right? And so typically this is going to be, depending on the role, it's going to be about, could be as few as one or two, but usually it's 3 to 5 KRAs for every role. Again, if you download our job scorecard example over at ucmgrow.com, you can see some examples there of one of the roles that we laid out in that example scorecard. And then the other part of a job scorecard, the last part, is the KPIs. These are your key performance indicators. These are specific, trackable numbers that are reviewed consistently, so performance is never a surprise at the end of the month. And typically those KPIs should be part of a company or a practice-wide scorecard, like we've talked about in previous podcast episodes that we'll mention here more in a moment. So that's the basics of a job scorecard: mission, purpose, success defined, KRAs, KPIs, right? And with every KRA, you should have at least one KPI, right? So if a KRA is, like I said, it's a result that you want, what is the metric that can measure whether or not that result is happening, right? So for instance, if you had an associate doctor and one of their KRAs was to take new patients through the new patient process in order to convert them into a practice member, right? Something like that, right? If that was a KRA, a result that you wanted for that associate doctor to be able to take someone from a consultation through a report of findings and have them start care in your practice. If that was a result, that was a KRA, then a KPI for that would be a care plan conversion percentage, right? We expect, the goal for that position, your KPI is whatever, 70%, 60%, whatever it is, right? Whatever your care plan conversion percentage goal is for that particular associate doctor, that would be the KPI that's associated with that KRA, right? So job scorecard, really important, really, really important, Doc. If you're not using them within your practice, I encourage you to do so. It'll make a huge difference in the accountability you have within the practice. And so from there, you can develop a weekly scorecard that you can track in your weekly meetings. We've talked about this recently in previous podcasts. You can go back and listen to those. Both we had a podcast on metrics. We had a podcast on weekly meetings, and the combination of those two podcasts will really help you with this. But basically, every team member's KPIs should be on your practice scorecard, right? And so that they know what their numbers are, they know where they are on them. Are they in the green, yellow, red? And some of those key KPIs by role. We've talked about, again, in previous episodes. You can get into that, but if you're looking at CA type KPIs, it may be new patient phone call conversion rate, or new patient show rate, or day 2 show rate, or total leads generated, or cost per lead, or patient visit average, or Google reviews generated, video testimonials captured. There's a variety of different things. And then if we're talking about doctors, it may be patient visits, new patients, care plan conversion, progress exam completion rate, collections, overhead, office visit average care plan, referrals generated, so forth. So you want to have that job scorecard. I mean, the practice scorecard, right? That then kind of pulls in from everybody's job scorecards the things that they're accountable for, and then just have a real clear green, yellow, red. Green is on track, goals are being met, KPIs are being hit for that week. You're looking at this in your weekly meeting. Yellow, needs attention, a trend worth watching before it becomes a problem. Or red, needs action, real issue requiring conversation and a clear plan, right? And so that's why it's nice to do this usually digitally. So then you can pull it up in a meeting, pull it up on a laptop or whatever, and everybody can look at it together. Or you can pull it up on big screen if you got a big screen in the room, and everybody can look at it together and say, all right, where are we at with every area of our company scorecard? And then as we also mentioned recently, having those weekly meetings, so important. Weekly team meetings. So we talked about the level 10. That's what we want to go for, where you talk about wins and you review that scorecard together. You go through your quarterly priorities, you talk about issues, and you go through your, action items and commitments. So that again, all of these recent podcasts kind of work together, right? We had our metrics, we had our team meeting, we talked about our team training, weekly team training, and now this one, building that culture of accountability, brings this all together. And then you want to be creating clear ownership, right? Shared responsibility is another way of saying no responsibility. When more than one person owns something, the accountability gap is inevitable. Every important result in your practice needs a single named owner. And that's why it's so crucial to have job scorecards that are specific to each team member, and then pull those numbers into a company-wide scorecard so everybody can see it. And so, everybody owns one particular thing. And this is why, another reason why we encourage division of labor within a team too. So that, for instance, if you have, when you have a bigger team and you have a new patient coordinator, the new patient coordinator can have very specific KRAs and KPIs that are all focused around new patients, right? Versus, everyone is responsible for new patients. And then it becomes much more challenging to have strong levels of accountability. When tasks are assigned to the team or everyone, they quietly become no one's job, right? Ambiguity is the enemy of execution. And so you have to ask the question, well, who's going to own this? Whose responsibility is this going to be? The team needs to know this. They need to know, it's one name. Okay, no, not you and you. Who owns it? One person. That is how you can create clear ownership and accountability within a team. Another thing, Doc, for you, if you're the kind of person who wants to just jump in and do it and just thinks, well, it's just easier if I do it because I know how to do it, and you don't want to train people as well, I would encourage you to coach instead of rescue, right? Coach them, coach your team. Use those challenges, those things that come up within the practice as opportunities to coach. If it's something that's going to require more than a few minutes, then put it in your next weekly training session. But either way, it's a short feedback system that you can put in place where you just ask them, okay, so what happened? Let me understand the situation from your perspective without any judgment. Just tell me what happened. Get that self-awareness. Number 2 is like, what did you learn? Tell me about this happened. So what did we learn about this plan or about this, whatever, this system, this situation, this patient, whatever? Turn every mistake into a growth opportunity rather than a source of shame. We want to extract the lesson, right? Number 3 is, what's your plan, right? You want to give them the opportunity to generate the solution. This will help develop their problem-solving capability and their confidence. And then ask the question, how can I help? Offer support without taking over. You're a resource, not their rescue team, right? And so if you keep that mindset, Doc, if you're the, okay, all right, this happened, I'm not going to freak out. Let's talk it through. Let's figure out how we can avoid this from happening again. Is this an issue with our system? Do we need to develop a different system, a better checklist, whatever? Is this, was this a patient-specific issue that may not ever happen again? You got to just kind of break it down and see what's happening. What happened? What did we learn? What's our plan going forward? And how can I help you with your plan? Another thing to encourage accountability within a practice is to reward it, right? Reward it, encourage it, praise it within your practice, right? When people keep commitments, celebrate team members who are consistently following through on what they said they do. That is huge. Like, hey, wow, thank you for taking ownership of this and taking it from, A to Z. Amazing. Love it. Solving problems. When team members solve their own problems, or they don't just bring you the problem, they're saying, oh, okay, this happened. I figured out why it happened. I'm putting in a different way to deal with it in the future. You want to call that out and be like, hey, thank you for taking ownership of that. Thank you for figuring out what the issue was and fixing it. And also, when someone's taking initiative, when they're going above and beyond, when someone acts without being asked and they do it well, that's exactly the culture you're trying to build. And so celebrate it, make it visible. Say, hey, that's, when you're doing wins in your weekly meeting, look for these examples so you can call it out. And then consistency. When someone is, reliable consistently, that long-term reliability and really, trustworthiness, really, you want to call that out to them as well, and just recognize them publicly when you have multiple team members and reward them. When you got somebody that's doing a great job, make sure you're paying them well. You're giving them bonuses. You're encouraging their great work. Another thing you can do is create psychological safety, right? Accountability without psychological safety can produce fear, not ownership. So for your team to take true responsibility, they have to trust that honesty with whatever happened is going to be met with support, not punishment. You have to make it safe for them to be human, right? We all make mistakes. We all need help. These are things that just need to happen within a team. So team members need to feel safe admitting errors. And knowing that we want to find mistakes early before they become bigger, and asking for help, right? Encourage the team to ask for help. It's not a support of it's not weakness to ask for help. Having that culture that's team oriented and saying, okay, hey, this is somebody, they're saying I need help in this area. Let's give them some more training. Let's give them some more help, whatever. And I don't know is an okay response when someone can feel comfortable being like, you know what, I don't understand this, or I don't know why this happened, or whatever. This phrase spoken honestly can help with that as well. So there's an accountability ladder that I found that is really a beautiful picture of your ability to see kind of where a team member is or where the team is in general. And, the lowest possible level of accountability is the victim mindset. And if you have a team member or a team, the full team that's in this place, this is a bad place to be. And really, it's that victim mindset of, it's not my fault. It's basically a denial of any personal responsibility. And so if you're seeing this is a big red flag, right? This could be a team member issue that could lead to them not being on the team if this is consistent. But again, it comes back to, have you given them good, clear expectations when it comes to their role and how to win in it? The second level up is the excuse mindset. And that's really, they're acknowledging that there's a problem, but they're attributing it to external factors that are beyond one's control. It's just been busy, or, it's that other team member's fault, or whatever. There's a lot of excuses. Well, that's just not a great patient, or whatever. A lot of excuses, not a lot of ownership. The third level up is awareness, where they're recognizing one's own role in the outcome. And this is really a critical turning point. You want to see this within the team. Everyone's aware of, yes, there are things that happen, but what's my role in it? How can I make it better? And then moving into the fourth level, which is ownership, where every team member is fully accepting the responsibility without deflection or qualification. They're just saying, yep, that's my responsibility. I'll make it happen. And, if something happened here, we'll address it. We'll fix it. We'll develop a better system, whatever it is. And then the fifth level, this is really where you want to be. If you want a high culture or high accountability culture within your upper cervical practice, is all about solutions and results. Every team member is taking action. They're measuring outcomes. They're delivering on commitments. This is where great teams operate. They're solutions-minded, results-oriented, and it's not about being a victim. It's not about making excuses. It's all about how can we most effectively develop a system that will lead to results. And if we don't achieve the result we were looking to achieve, then let's fix the system, continue to work on it, solve the issue rather than blame each other. And so this even, relates to our practice growth stages. When you're early on in practice, or you're early on in your growth, at least in practice growth stage 1, where your leader is doing almost everything, especially if you're a solo doctor with no staff, you have to develop a high level of accountability for yourself. And that will help you when you hire that first CA to then develop the same thing for them. But again, you have to have the right pieces in place to make that happen. When you're in practice growth stage 2, you will begin to delegate tasks. You don't want to delegate just tasks. You want to try to start delegating authority as well. And you want your team members to start to own specific responsibilities. So if it's just you and a CA, or you and 2 CAs, or whatever it is, that's the time where you really need to grow as a leader in order to continue to move up the stages. And then when you move into practice growth stage 3, where you're not just leading CAs, but now you have another doctor in the practice, you want your team members to fully own outcomes for their areas. And you really want to be a coach rather than just someone who's rescuing everyone. You want to be investing in the team, investing in your other doctor in the practice, helping them grow, and that type of thing in order to develop the leadership capabilities in order to continue to move on into the next stage of growth, practice growth stage 4 and beyond, where systems and cultures should create accountability. You should have such strong systems and such a strong overall culture that the accountability is just built in to the practice. The practice will operate and grow without the leader in every decision in a strong practice growth stage 4, 5, 6 practice. So each stage of growth requires deliberate transfer of ownership. If you skip a step, growth creates chaos rather than freedom. And so at every level, higher levels of accountability are necessary. So here's a practical action plan for you for this week, Doc. Start with a scorecard. Like I said, go over to our website, ucmgrow.com, download the job scorecard template, and work on a job scorecard. Create one of them. Spend some time working on it. And really clarify that role. Get clear on the KRAs and KPIs. And if you're not already doing weekly team meetings, start doing weekly team meetings. If you're in that situation where you're rescuing all the time, start practicing the habit of coaching instead of rescuing. And if you're avoiding difficult conversations, have that difficult conversation this week. So, Doc, is your practice ready to scale accountability? Many accountability problems don't stem from a lack of desire. They stem from practices that have outgrown their current leadership and operating systems. The infrastructure that got you to your current stage won't get you to the next one. And so we created a tool that will help you with this. It's called our Practice Growth Score, and it really gives you a good picture of where you are with your systems, what practice growth stage you're in, and what are the things that you need to focus on in that stage in order to continue to grow. And you can get the practice growth score. You can get your own practice growth score by filling out this quick assessment. It takes you like 2-3 minutes. You can go over to ucmgrow.com/score. That's ucmgrow.com/score. And that's really going to help you stop guessing and start building with a clear map in hand, because you'll know what stage you're in, what specific systems are breaking down, and what's your highest leverage next steps for building a great practice and be able to continue to move your practice forward. The practices achieve real freedom, Doc, aren't the ones that work the hardest. They're the ones that build the right systems for the right stage. Thank you so much for listening to the UCM podcast or watching it. And we appreciate you so much. And we'll be back next time. And as we always say around here, go team upper cervical.